when you have a very, very upset Letitia James, a very, very upset AOC, and upset Kathy Hochul as well, right? They're all freaking out. Why? Because Donald Trump was just handed a major win by none other than the Supreme Court on something that's important to these guys, and that's birthright citizenship, right? Because if you come here, even illegally, and you have a child, you can then have that child become a United States citizen. And so the Trump administration has taken issue with this, basically saying it's encouraging bad behavior. And what do you know? The Supreme Court came forward with this really, really, really big announcement that basically puts, Letitia James out of business. And you know why she's out of business? Because she's made a career out of going after Donald Trump. And now she's not actually going to be able to do that anymore because all the federal court judges, you know, those district judges all over the country that were trying to effectively decide the fate of the rest of the nation, one single judge. And we kept saying, you know, this isn't right. These judges aren't elected. Why are they deciding the fate of the rest of the country? Well, the Supreme Court just came out and said, you know what? That can't happen anymore. No. You're not going to have a single judge making the decision for the rest of the nation. So this is a momentous bit of news. It limits the judge's powers, which gets us to the birthright citizenship. But I'm telling you guys, huge, massive win. I want to go to the decision right now. You see this coming out this morning, the Supreme Court of the United States deciding that, you know what, these single judges cannot actually have these nationwide injunctions preventing the executive orders from the President of the United States of America from taking effect. Well, one of those big executive orders happens to be birthright citizenship. So this is a major deal, and it does put Letitia James out of business. It does put all of these AGs everywhere that are just trying to fight him at every turn, as well as the district court judges and the single federal judges that want to get in the way of any of the executive orders coming from the presidential office. They're not going to have the sway they did, the power they did. And Donald Trump was pretty happy about it. I want you to listen.
Thanks for this decision, and thanks to this decision, we can now promptly file to proceed with numerous policies that have been wrongly enjoined on a nationwide basis. And some of the cases we're talking about would be ending birthright citizenship, which now comes to the fore. That was meant for the babies of slaves. It wasn't meant for people trying to scam the system and come into the country on a vacation. This was, in fact, it was the same date, the exact same date, the end of the Civil War. It was meant for the babies of slaves, and it's so clean and so obvious. But this lets us go there and finally win that case, because hundreds of thousands of people are pouring into our country under birthright citizenship, and it wasn't meant for that reason. It was meant for the babies of slaves. So thanks to this decision, we can now properly file to proceed with these numerous policies and those that have been wrongly enjoined on a nationwide basis, including birthright citizenship, ending sanctuary city funding, suspending refugee resettlement, freezing unnecessary funding, stopping federal taxpayers from paying for transgender surgeries, and numerous other priorities of the American people.
Wow. Okay. This is a big, big deal, you guys. A huge ruling putting a lot of power back in the hands of the President of the United States. You heard him refer, of course, to birthright citizenship. You know, this is important. It came about, the 14th Amendment, that is, as a result of the Dred Scott case. And, you can go back to, fifth grade social studies, back when they used to actually teach this stuff. I don't know as they do anymore. But anyway, basically what it did was it ensured that anybody who had been formerly enslaved, they had American citizenship, their children had American citizenship. And the clause reads, and I'm going to quote, all persons born or naturalized in the United States and subjects to jurisdiction thereof are citizens of the United States and of the state wherein they reside. And so that one sentence, right, that is what has become the foundation for the so-called birthright citizenship. But a lot of people have said, you know what they were talking about back then was actually very specific. When you're talking about jurisdiction thereof, the core argument by those in the Trump legal team would be that, you know what, when you were talking about this in 1868, you weren't talking about people who were coming here to say, have an anchor baby tourist, right? I mean, hey, 60 Minutes was doing this story years ago, like decades ago, about people from China coming over, and, you know, they had the wealth to be able to come over here, and that way they could get a dual citizenship for their kids. And it's not just China, any place, right, where you were in the world, like, why not have that optionality and come to the United States, get a U.S. passport along with whatever you had? But then increasingly, and especially within the last 4 years, you have seen an influx of people. Well, not even the last 4 years. I mean, this has been going on for a couple of decades, but certainly, you know, the 20 million that came in unannounced during the Biden administration contributed to this. You have people that are coming here illegally, and they are having kids, and they become American citizens. And so what has happened is everything's kind of gotten warped. And so what the Trump administration is pointing out is that you're creating these perverse incentives for people to come here illegally, or for people to have tourist visas to come here to be able to have a child. And that's not how it was intended to be. So this is huge. It is just, I mean, it's remarkable, not just with the birthright issue, which is a huge one, but all of this, you know, sort of interference from these lower court judges is now coming into question. You can see the treatment in the media being SCOTUS hands Trump a major win, limiting judges' ability to block his birthright citizenship order nationwide. That's coming to us from Politico. And look, I would say any way you slice it, it is a huge win. And even CNN had to admit this. I was watching MSNBC as the news came in, you know, because I watch it also, so that we know what everybody is thinking in every, you know, spot in the universe, right? And I read everything too, all sides. And the main sort of thrust of the argument there on MSNBC was that they were just confused. They were really, really, really confused. It's not that confusing, okay? Because look, now a single judge cannot get in the way of an executive order. They don't have the ability to issue a nationwide injunction, which is what they were doing with birthright citizenship as well as some other things. So that no longer exists. The court will have to go back and decide birthright citizenship at some point. So this is sort of a temporary measure, and we can talk about that. But first, just know what a big deal this is, because now you're saying to the district court judges, the federal judges, hey guys, it's game over. You guys can't do this anymore.
Happened to Donald Trump, multiples of that. And now finally, this case has made its way up to the Supreme Court. And so we're going to go through this case as quickly as we can. It looks like at first glimpse, and we're just starting, it looks like the court has put some limits on the ability of district courts, trial courts, to issue those kind of rulings. And it looks like the court has said district courts only have the power to do that in certain very narrow circumstances. So we're going to go through this and get the details soon, but that's the gist.
Yeah. Okay. So that's the gist, which means all those judges that are out there doing this, that, and the other are not going to be able to do that anymore. In terms of whether or not this 14th Amendment and you know, people that are in the jurisdiction thereof, right, of the United States, whether that would apply to anybody coming here, that may be still up for grabs, because you're going to now have a little bit of chaos going on. Not that we didn't have any already, right? So now you get basically 22 states out there that are saying there is no way that Donald Trump can say that you are not a citizen of the United States if you're born in this country. And then you have all the other states, all the red states, that are going to say, well, we agree with Donald Trump. And we do not believe that if you are here as an undocumented immigrant, if you're here on a tourist visa, this, that, and the other, you are going to be able to just automatically qualify for citizenship, birthright citizenship in the United States. And so this is setting up that tension. And at some point, the court will be forced to make a decision on that, because you see what's going to happen, guys. You're going to have all these 22 states come together. I mean, Letitia James is already chomping at the bit. We're going to get to her reaction in a second. They're going to come together and they're going to say, okay, now we're suing on behalf of everybody. Meanwhile, you're going to have the other states saying, we agree with the federal government, and the federal government's going to go back to, what do you know? The naturalization clause. What do you know? The supremacy clause. Oh, the Commerce Clause. They're going to say we're the ones that have control over immigration and who is in this country. So our decision trumps, quite literally, anything you guys want to do. Letitia, looking at you, honey. So that's going to be the next wrinkle, if you would, in this entire case. And it's really upsetting some people. Some people like, of course, AOC. AOC has been saying for a while that somehow the Trump administration is anti-immigration. I mean, forget about the fact that they just brought in all those people from South Africa. I mean, she would say that that's somehow racially motivated. I mean, on and on and on and on. And this is her, if you're looking at the screen, AOC in the Puerto Rican Day Parade, campaigning for the socialist communist mayor of New York City, who is now the Democrat nominee. Let me tell you, the Democrats are scared right now because you have the likes of AOC and now this socialist about to take over New York City, and they realize that this is not going to play in Peoria or the rest of the country. So it's very specific to that sort of Brooklyn hipster crowd. It was a lot of college-educated white kids that decided to vote early for this guy, and now everybody's like, oh my gosh, what are we going to do in the city of New York? And they blame Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez for it. And believe me, she's now kind of up creek without a paddle. You look at what's coming out of some of the top Dems, Rahm Emanuel. Oh my gosh, Shifty Schiff. Adam Schiff is actually praising Donald Trump on Iran. We're going to get to that momentarily, but remember how mad they are. Letitia James is livid. AOC, I mean, she thinks for some reason that the Republicans are anti-immigrant, which they're not. They're just saying, hey, we're pro-law and order. Imagine that.
About how this is about illegal versus legal immigration. They are attacking legal status and removing legal status. The Republican majority is anti-legal immigration in the United States. And I want to make that very clear, and I yield back.
Ooh, really clear? Well, I'm going to tell you, I want to play some sound from Representative Wesley Hunt. He was recently in some hearings talking about the 14th Amendment and birthright citizenship and what it meant to him as a descendant of people that needed that 14th Amendment for all the obvious reasons. In other words, it's rooted in something, and in his estimation, you are sort of trouncing all over the history and what was given to African Americans who had been enslaved, and he's not having it, not one bit of it. Let's listen to Representative Hunt, a pretty spectacular defense of saying this is not fair, this is not right, this is not what was intended.
We are a nation of immigrants. But there's a difference, stark difference, between giving citizenship to the children of slaves, the children of those subject to the Middle Passage, the children of sharecroppers, and the children of those who were once considered property, and giving citizenship to the children of people who crossed the border illegally, stay in taxpayer-funded luxury hotels, who receive free Xboxes, free cell phones, free flights around the country, and 3 square meals a day. There's a big difference. My great-great-grandfather was born on a plantation, Rosedown Plantation in Louisiana. He had to join the Union Color Guard to gain his freedom. By morphing the citizenship clause into something that it wasn't meant to be, it's demeaning to descendants of slaves like me.
So, you know, a really interesting and important take, once again saying, listen, this was written in a very different time, and it was a very specific application. And that's, again, what you heard from Donald Trump today. So this will get fought out in the courts.